Tonight, NDC accuses President Akufo-Addo and his government of criminal negligence in a PDS scandal as they disclose alleged conspiracy to use a scandal as smoke screen to appropriate ECG assets for party cronies.
That any attempt to use this scandal as an avenue to appropriate the assets of ECG for cronies and assigns of President Akufo-Addo will be fiercely resisted by the people of Ghana.
Plus, the emergence of an email from the Finance Ministry giving approval for the problematic demand guarantees at the heart of the PDS scandal. We also hear from the Africa Center for Energy Policy, which has a position paper out tonight demanding further investigations. And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting. Ready? Well, the PDS scandal is not going away anytime soon. In the latest twist to the scandal, an email has emerged purporting to show that the Finance Ministry gave approval to the problematic demand guarantees at the heart of the PDS scandal. Now, that email showed that the ministry gave the approval just a day before the ECG concession arrangement came into effect, leaving very little time for the ECG itself to verify the authenticity of those guarantees. My colleague Israel Lai is joining me right now with details of that. And Israel, just before we go through that, I need to set the background for this particular email.
Sure.
This particular email purports to show the final approval that was given for the demand guarantees, the terms of the demand guarantees. But it all trails back to that report that MEDA commissioned, which showed that on the 19th of February, there was a meeting at the Jubilee House, at which meeting, which was chaired by, and this report details who were part of the meeting. Now, this meeting on February 19, 2019, showed that the vice president chaired this particular meeting, and also present in this meeting were other top officials of government, including the following. We had in this meeting the chief of staff, the Minister for Finance, the two Deputy Ministers for Energy, MEDA Board Chairman and CEO, ECG Board Chair and MD. There were also other senior officers from these ministries and agencies who were also present at this meeting. Now, this MEDA-backed report said that it is at this meeting that the approval was given for that now very famous downgrade of the bank guarantees to the demand guarantees issued by an insurance company.
Yeah. It is important at this point to indicate the date this meeting was held again, because it's important to establish the timelines.
This particular meeting was on the 19th of February 2019, right?
Okay.
Now we've seen, and the reason why this is important is all civil society groups say this is the genesis of our problem.
Yeah.
That if we had stuck to what Parliament has approved, which is the bank guarantees, which was had to come from a AAA, the top level rank bank, we won't be in this problem where we are now struggling to verify the authenticity. Our COOT, which gave us the insurance guarantee, now says, well, that is not valid because people had signed this who didn't have the authority.
Yeah.
They say if you stuck to the original agreement and didn't downgrade and approve this downgrade, we won't have this problem, right? Now we are seeing another document emerging, an email, that showed that the terms of that problematic guarantee was also approved just a day before the concession arrangement came into effect. What does this email say?
So let's go to the email, and I'm going to start with this part. The part of the email that is generated on this is on February 28, 2019. So it says Fochu Tete Kujoji. He wrote this: Dear Mangoa, Please review the language below for a proposed Ministry of Finance approval of the guarantees. This will need to be issued to MIDA as soon as possible today. I'll call you shortly to follow up. Best, Ofochu. And this is on the 28th of February, and it's at 10:37
a.m.
And then there was a reply to this.
Just a quick point for listeners. Gani Mangoa is the Director, Legal Division of the Finance Ministry. She is the person who was written to in this mail, asking to give MIDA the go-ahead to sort of work with the guarantee as it was at that time.
All right. And then we have this other email following up, or essentially a reply to all of that. Says on Thursday, February 28, 2019 at 11:31.
Who was writing
indicating, this? First of all, the first one was at 10:37. This one follows at 11:31, and it's M. Gani.
Okay, so that is Mangoa Gani.
Okay.
He's still the Director Legal Division, replying to the first mail, correct?
Yes. So it says, Dear Ofochu and Kwame, the language is fine. As a cautionary measure, however, albeit the guarantor banks have signed the guarantee, can we see a copy of their agreement with Carl Bank / advising party so we can have a complete view of obligations and responsibilities in terms of issuing the guarantee, payout, etc. Thank you. Regards, Mangoa. So this is Mangoa writing this. And then, so this, as I indicated, is February 28, 2019 at 11:31.
This is all happening the same day.
Yeah.
First email comes in at 10:37 saying, please give us the approval. Second email comes from the Director Legal Finance, again, replying to that saying, this is at 11:31 a.m., saying, yes, the language is fine. Cautionary measure, give us I'll bet the guarantor banks have signed it. Can you see a copy of the agreement with CalBank? And CalBank, we know, played a central role in securing of the now very problematic guarantee from Al-Qut.
Okay, so then we move on to this other email, this which is supposed to be the final one, Thursday, February 28th, same day, this time at 3:39 p.m. And this is also coming from Mangoa. And then to a number of people, Ofochu, Tete Kujoji, Julius, Kwame Kwekpena, Yvonne Fiajo.
And Bernard is from MIDA.
Yeah.
You can see his email there.
And then copying Wangara.
Yvonne is also from MIDA.
Okay.
So this is to a lot of MIDA executives.
So copying Wangara, Michael Bediako, Honorable Ken Oforiata.
So Finance Minister is copied in there. Michael Bediako, who is a
Charles Edubuahing is also copied in there. And then Tony Oki. So it says, Dear Kwame, we make reference to the demand guarantees for the lease payment security and the BSA payment security submitted by PDS to be effective March 1, 2019. We have reviewed the terms of the guarantees and take note of the following. 1. The guarantees are irrevocable undertakings to pay the beneficiary when there is a compliance demand. 2. The guarantees are subject to the uniform rules for demand guarantees published by the International Chamber of Commerce. 3. The guarantees stipulate the agreed sum for the guarantees. And 4. They are reasonably satisfactory in form to the Ministry of Finance. In light of our review, and in particular the foregoing, we hereby confirm that the guarantees are acceptable. Regards, Mangoa.
Okay, and so that's an important line.
Yes, and then it says
the guarantees are acceptable.
Yes, and then note this. As discussed, it is necessary that ECG's board further approves the demand guarantee and the other documents and processes the Ministry of Finance has issued approvals on in the transfer, because ECG, being a limited liability company, it is the board that has a lawful mandate under the Companies Act to give these approvals. It is important, therefore, that ECG's board is requested to provide the assurances by board resolutions.
That's an important point. So two things here in that final mail at 3:39 on 28th February.
Yep.
One is that the Finance Ministry of Legal, head of legal, says the guarantee is okay, we can work with it.
Yep.
Second, it says, however, ECG board must give final approval. But the timeline is interesting. Why? The 28th. That date is important for the concession arrangement itself. Why?
Because it's the last day prior to the day when we had to go with it. Because March 1st. March 1 was the date the takeover had to happen.
The concession had to go on it.
Yeah.
And the Americans were quite emphatic with us. If March 1st came and we hadn't finalized this,
it had implications.
We probably will lose the $500 million we're giving us. So this is last minute, just before 4 p.m. Finance Ministry gives the approval. Demand guarantees, okay, let's go. But ask ECG to approve.
Yeah.
The question is, seeing that the very next day, concession arrangement PDS takes over, it doesn't appear that ECG had enough time for the board to sit to approve finally approve what the finance ministry was approving.
From what we're seeing, yes, it doesn't look like
appear.
it. I mean, 3:39, they would have to call a board meeting and all that before March 1.
And further to that is also what we know subsequent to March 1, which is that it was ECG subsequent to this that then decides, okay, let's do due diligence. It was them that first discovered from our code that there could be a problem with that demand guarantee. That was first approved in that meeting at Jubilee House on the 19th of February.
Yeah.
Subsequently then approved by the finance ministry to say terms, okay, go ahead. ECG then subsequent to that left very little time. Subsequent to that then finds there could be a problem. Now, but there are a few questions that we have, which is if that vice president chaired meeting on the 19th did approve this particular change in the bank guarantee to the insurance guarantee,
which is what we are made to understand
from the FTI
report. Was there communication?
Yes.
To that effect?
To that effect. As in, following that meeting, was there a communication, a formal communication?
This was a consensus we arrived at this meeting.
Okay, and then, how then is it possible, if that a meeting agreed it, that a week or two down the line, the finance ministry is now giving approval for the terms of that demand guarantee?
Well, I wouldn't have the question. I wouldn't have the answers to it, but I would probably want to assume that yes, the meeting agreed that this should happen, but it probably took the finance ministry to give the formal approval
for it to happen.
For them to also say, oh, they being the sector ministry, and then for the sector ministry to also indicate that okay, then probably ECG. The board of ECG should actually take this thing up.
Okay. Easy, thank you very much. A lot of questions still at stake. And the reason why this is important, who gave that approval for the downgrade? I guess that's why this is important, because at the civil society tell us that is where the problem started. Okay, because we shouldn't have done this in the first place, but government did.
And these are questions that we know that ASAP is raising in this latest paper.
They've asked the vice president to answer some of these questions as well. Thank you, Israel. Now, on the same point, the minority NDC, the NDC held a press conference this afternoon, raising further questions about the same issue, how the downgrade happened and government approving that we should downgrade from bank guarantee to insurance guarantee. Former Deputy Minister for Energy, John Jinapor, is on the line with me. Hello, Mr. Jinapor.
Hello, thank you.
Also joining me is Mr. Andy Japa Mesa, MP for Sekondi, speaks for government. Mesa, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
My pleasure.
Mr. Jinapor, I want to quickly play for you what your General Secretary said today at this press briefing on this very matter we just discussed, and accusing the president and government of criminal negligence. Listen to John Sasiru Nketia. Unfortunately, I have to apologize. I have a technical issue here that my technical team is trying to resolve, so I can't play that. But Mr. Jinapor, the point there was that the General Secretary was making a point that there was criminal negligence. Why? Because of it claims there was bending of the rules by government, as we just illustrated, to just accommodate the PDS deal, but also hand it over to cronies. There's something else he said. Unfortunately, I'm not able now to play. My team is still working to fix it, which is an allegation that they also have evidence to show that this is all part of a ruse to give ECG assets to a company called EDF of France. Please explain that.
Thank you very much. I was listening to the chronology of events. What I would like to add is that on the 20th, around 4:30, ECG wrote a letter to the Minister of Finance indicating that the guarantee in the form and manner in which it was presented was not fit for purpose. ECG raised the alarm bell. And if you read the FTI report, I'm not talking about it circulating on social media. I'm talking of the bulky report, which contains all the annexure. If you read Exhibit 16, ECG informed the Ministry of Finance that they should not proceed because the guarantee was not proper. They even questioned the signatory and the person who signed that guarantee. The Minister of Finance ignored that and proceeded to push ECG to accept that guarantee. And so clearly, if the General Secretary says that is due to criminal negligence, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the General Secretary on that statement. Number two, let me assure government that in this matter, they would never be ahead of us because we are on the side of the truth. Government is using this opportunity. They haven't learned their lessons. It's been almost 2 weeks since this report and investigation was concluded. Government has not been able to come out with its position, contrary to the promise the Minister of Information gives you members of the press, because they are shopping around, looking for so-called investors and their preference and their preferred choices to come and assume the shareholding structure of all this issue and the concession. And we are putting them on notice that we are aware that they've approached EDF, we are aware that they've been to Bahamas, and that any attempts to drag this matter further and create more problems, the people of Ghana and the NDC in particular, we shall resist that. And we are being clear on that. The final one is that His Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, has a lot of questions to answer. And we shall ensure that we use whatever legitimate and constitutional means possible to ensure that the Vice President is held to account for that decision he took, which has brought us to this level. The Vice President decided, like we've all come to realize, to water down and to lower the bar, because the concessionaire, the original agreement is that the concessionaire must have a 60-40 in terms of financial and technical capacity. The major weighted average is on the financial, which ought to be 60. Clearly, from what we are seeing, this government, led by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has done a great disservice to this country, and we shall hold him squarely liable for this action.
On the line with me is Mr. Mensah, as I announced earlier. Mr. Mensah, is it true that government is shopping around already looking for somebody to replace PDS?
Well, good evening to your cherished listeners and to my very good friend John on the other side. Ivan, I'm not aware that government is shopping around looking for other investors to take over ECG, as is being alleged by our friends in the NDC. You see, Ivan, it's important, and I've said it before, that in dealing with this matter, we need really cool heads. Now, have you read the agreement, the concession agreement?
Yes, a bit of it. Yes, I have.
And did you notice in the concession agreement that Parliament itself gave power to the parties to vary, amend, or change any of the condition precedents that are contained in the agreement?
Without recourse to Parliament post the approval?
Please, are you aware that that provision exists in that agreement? I'm
just asking for clarity. Did they also say that you can do that without coming back to Parliament?
You can call your colleague, Samson Ayinene, who took pains after I made this disclosure on his program to read the agreement. And so if persons who are knowledgeable, who are privy to the agreement, sit on national radio and allege that the Vice President has questions to answer, and that he sat in his office in the Jubilee House and amended the agreement without recourse to Parliament, make you wonder what people are reading. But of course, I understand that it is politics that people are doing. That is all. Because, Evans, you see, I have said that to be able to appreciate the issues, really, you need to break it down into just three. The pre-closure actions that the parties took, okay, and post-closure actions that government have taken, and that post-transaction actions that PDS has taken. And if you break them down in this manner and look at what it is that happened prior to the completion date and what government did after the closure of the transaction date, you will see clearly that the allegations of government cooking this transaction for its cronies and all the noise, pardon me, that our friends are doing really have no legs to stand on.
Now, the fundamental point civil society makes is, if government didn't go the way of downgrading from a bank guarantee to this guarantee, we won't have this problem in the first place. You don't concede that?
I don't concede that at all. You see, if our court, okay, had indicated that the guarantee that they issued was valid and that they had gone through all the appropriate processes and that the officer who signed had the mandate of the company, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
But that's not what happened, does it? That's not what did happen.
Of course. So
I mean, the facts are what it is now, that you went that way,
point,
and it's
please,
eggs on your faces of people who approve this downgrade.
Listen to the point. My point is that the issue is not about the demand guarantee. That is not the issue at all. It is rather there are internal issues that have ultimately resulted.
I'm sorry. Many will disagree with you that it's Alco's internal issue. It's about the validity of the guarantees they issue. That is fundamental.
I'm saying that,
so as it is right now, there's no valid demand guarantee.
Absolutely, and that's why I said if you relate the actions of government pre the closure of the transaction, but at all, who were the persons who proceeded to find out the validity of the guarantee?
ECG.
Was it not government?
ECG.
Absolutely.
ECG.
ECG is not a government institution.
No, but as we just illustrated, the government approval for the downgrade didn't even give ECG time to do the verifications necessary that would have probably spotted this and stopped this scandal from even happening in the first place.
That is incorrect. You see, there was a meeting, and if you look at the FTI report, there was a meeting that was held on 19 February 2019, where the Vice President, as Chairman of the Economic Management Team, finally gave approval for the bank guarantee to be converted to the demand guarantee issued by an insurance company.
Well, tonight another mail has emerged of the Finance Ministry also on the 28th of February, writing
absolutely, that email relates to the content of the guarantee, because if you look at the report, it said clearly that at that meeting, the Vice President gave the approval and the parties were tasked to formulate the text that would be acceptable to both parties.
Yes.
So it was the text that was finally delivered to the Finance Ministry on the 28th.
Yeah, but without the approval of the text, there wasn't nobody could act. It was that final approval of the content that then gave the final go-ahead to MIDA to proceed before the 1st of March.
You see, two things. The issue of the conversion of the bank guarantee to demand guarantee was approved in principle. Lawyers were then tasked to go ahead and prepare the text that would be acceptable to the parties. Now, because of the time that we've all been apprised of what's of essence in this transaction, certain actions were agreed to be done post the completion of the transaction. And so when the text of the guarantee was finally approved on the day before the transaction closed, ECG was within their right, as was agreed by the parties, to go ahead and verify the authenticity or otherwise of the guarantee. In any event, if you look at the FTI report, which has become gospel for all of us to refer to now, you will see clearly that the MIDA indicated to the ministry that they had gotten advice from the transaction advisors that everything was in order and that they can proceed to execute the instrument. So where is the issue regarding grand scheme to rip off the people of Ghana? Where does it arise?
Mr. Junapo is still with me on that. Mr. Junapo, so you fundamentally have raised issue of criminal negligence. You have alleged that there's a plot to take this and hand over to another company. He says he's not aware of that. And yet you've made that allegation. You haven't backed that with any evidence. Where's the evidence to suggest that that is indeed happening? You must provide that. Just not throw that out there.
Yeah, Japan will not be aware of that. He doesn't speak for government. He doesn't work for government. He's the director of one of the companies of PDS.
But the question is, where's the evidence to back that is happening now? What's the evidence?
Look, we are a party. We are a political party. Go and check the parliamentary records, check as of April, Everything we have said about this scandal has come to pass. And so when we say that we are aware that government officials are trying to bring in EDF, don't forget EDF initially was in this consortium. They had to pull out. And so we know what we are talking about, and we know what we are saying. We have served caution to government. Why are government officials and government spokespersons running away? Why can't they speak to this matter? Is it not curious that a big platform like Multimedia Joy FM, this platform of yours, government officials cannot even tell Ghanaians what they intend doing with this scandal in brouhaha? That should tell you something. We are vigilant. We shall remain resolute and would ensure that the right thing is done and that nobody shall appropriate the shares of ECG for him or herself.
Yeah, but that is still an allegation that is unproven as of now. You admit that?
When we raised all this issue about guarantees, they denied it. When we said that the finance minister attempted to restructure the shares of PDS, of which he has no control, they denied that. When we indicated that they knew that there were problems with the guarantee, even at the date of our trying to approve it on the 28th, they denied that. All of that has come to pass. Everything we have said about this PDS scandal has come to pass. And so when we tell you that this is what is happening, please, for the sake of the records, and if you check the trajectory of events, you ought to give us some modicum of credibility and some modicum of space. We are a big political party waiting to come in government, and we know what we are doing.
The NDC says today that you would resist any attempt to hand over to another government. First of all, establish for me, what should happen to the PDS deal now? Should it be terminated? Are you one of those who believe it should be terminated now?
We indicated that PDS has no financial and technical capacity. We said that from day one.
So it's untenable to have them continue.
That with the vice president, the finance minister, the attorney general, and the minister of energy still at play, even if you profile a good suggestion for them, they will mess it up. Because these four people, you cannot trust them on any day. Because they have demonstrated beyond reasonable doubt that they do not have the country Ghana at heart.
So should the PDS concession agreement be terminated or not?
Look, we have read the FTA report. We have read all the other reports. We are saying that looking at what's happening, clearly everything is not above board. But first of all, let us deal with these individuals.
How? What do you mean? What do you mean deal? What specifically are you recommending?
I'm saying that the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Energy, the Attorney General, and the Vice President should be taken off completely from this whole process. Is it not the Minister of Energy who told us it's fraudulent? Where is he?
But when you say taking off, when you say taking off, what do you mean? Sacked, dismissed, suspended?
What do you mean? Have nothing to do with that process. And if the Minister of Energy has nothing to do with an entity that is supposed to be under his ministry, you and I know what it means. But finally, I beg you, the Minister of Finance should stop treating the Minister of Energy as if it's an appendage of its ministry. The Ministry of Energy is a fully fledged ministry. Secondly, PURC is an independent body. It is this meddling by the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta. It is this meddling trying to control the Ministry of Energy as if it is an appendage of that ministry and trying to meddle in the affairs of PURC that has brought us this far.
Mr. Jinapon, back to my question. What should happen now to the PDS deal?
I have just said that immediately what should happen is that these four personalities.
No, I mean, but that is not an answer to my question. That's an answer to something you want to say. But I'm asking you specifically, on the back of all the reports, the government report, the FTI report, what should happen now?
Look, I've given you my answer.
No, you haven't. I'm saying, Charles Okubobe was clear. This is untenable. Terminate. I'm just citing an example. I've heard you say a lot. You've read all the reports. NDC held a press conference, but you're still leaving the big elephant in the room. What should happen with the PDS deal going forward?
What we need is an independent body that can look into this matter.
I'm sorry. At this press conference today, just to remind you, Asienu Nketia paused and clapped for the minority because you call for an independent probe, and he says the independent probe you got was from MIDA, and that the MIDA probe was independent, and he said, listen, it was a taxpayers. He was happy.
That's right, FTI.
Yeah. So he was happy that there was an independent probe into it. Now you are calling for another independent probe. I'm confused.
No, we are not asking for an independent probe. No.
But I just said that
following this report, we need an independent body to take that report, consult all of us, including MPs like myself, so that collectively we can come up with a roadmap to deal with this challenge.
So just for clarity, so you're saying as of now, the minority and NDC, you don't have a position yet on what should happen to PDS and the concession arrangement?
I just stated my position to you that following this report, we would require an independent body to take that report, consult with all of us, and come up with a roadmap. That is our position.
Okay, Mr. Mensah, your final thoughts?
Evans, you see, there are inaccuracies that are being thrown out there. You know, in the first place, if you allege that PDS, which is a consortium that was led by the Miracle Group, had no technical and financial competencies, then what do you really mean when they were actually pre-qualified under your government? EDF, is saying, was part of this consortium. It's clearly inaccurate. EDF, I understand, was an entity that also participated in the bidding process and at a certain point exited. You see, the NDC cannot have their way in this matter. Government has been clear with the people of this country. All decisions that have been taken or were taken